All right, .NET 7 at the high level, it is a short-term release. That means it's going to be supported for 18 months, and then they're going to roll into .NET 8. And 8 is going to be the long-term release. It is a seamless upgrade from .NET 6. It really is. Any kind of compilation changes or breaking changes in libraries are quickly and easily fixed. The huge theme for .NET 7 is performance. That's the huge theme as far as the SDK goes and the compiler and the runtime. The huge thing is performance. A lot of focus on ARM64. So if you have been doing some work for ARM processors, then this will be interesting for you. Now, the mono perf improvements greatly affect WebAssembly, Blazor WebAssembly, the new WASI experimentations that are running, so that perhaps they can get older WPF and WinForms applications to run launched from a browser running in the WebAssembly runtime. So we'll see if that is somehow possible, but they're working on that. And that also affects MAUI. And so the mono perf improvements are huge. And of course, the ARM processors that go along with it. We're going to highlight some of the C# 11 features that go into it. Generic math, static virtual methods, and then there's some tooling. There's a first rev of some container tooling built into .NET Publish, .NET.exe, that they're working on, but they're promising future refinements along the way as they release, .NET 7 and then 7.1 and all these patches. So and we're gonna really highlight containers in a big way, because Azure Container Apps in Azure is just as big of a deal as a new version of .NET and a new version of Visual Studio. So actually, we didn't have a new major version of Visual Studio. We're still 2022. But all right, that's the highlights for .NET 7. Azure Container Apps. I'm highlighting this big time because there was more tooling, more support that came out. This is Azure Container Apps are a year old, but the tooling has been getting better, and it's been getting easier to use it with .NET. So Azure Container Apps, if you're not familiar with it, never played around with it, it is a service that wraps Kubernetes. It is just like Azure App Service for wrapping a Kubernetes pod, running on a Kubernetes worker node. And I'll talk about those concepts later on. And some of the key features is you can scale, as opposed to App Service, where you can scale on a few different rules, but it's kind of coarse-grained. With Azure Container Apps, you can scale down to idle or scale down to nothing and take it offline, or you can use any metric under the sun that you want to scale with. The key here is the Kata or Kata scalers. Those are kind of part of Kubernetes, and Azure Container Apps is wrapping Kubernetes. And so one of the Kata scalers is an Azure Monitor metric. So I think most of you, if you are not emitting Azure Monitor metrics straight from your application and then looking at it in Application Insights or whatever APM you're using, you want to be doing that. And when you do that, you can literally have C# logic determining the metric by which you scale up the CPU capacity or the memory capacity or the number of Azure Container Apps. It also has a secrets dictionary built in. It runs off environment variables. So those are the high points. We're going to get into that.